The bright lights of Hollywood shone down on the stage as the music began to swell, marking the beginning of another exciting chapter of the Newlyweds game. It was a day filled with anticipation and the promise of romance, or perhaps a few playful disagreements that only young love could sustain. The audience cheered as the four couples were introduced to the world. Couple number 1 had been married for 9 months, the radiant Felicia and her husband Calvin Alford. Right beside them stood couple number 2, Paula and Ron Baldwin, who had shared 11 months of matrimonial bliss. The third pair, Sherilyn and Mike Crump, brought the experience of 14 months of marriage to the stage. Finally, couple number 4, Kristen and Matt Kramer, rounded out the group, having been wed for 8 months. The star of the show, Bob Eubanks, stepped into the spotlight with a wide smile, greeting the crowd and the contestants with his signature warmth. He thanked everyone for joining and turned his attention to the 8 individuals who were about to put their knowledge of their spouses to the ultimate test. The atmosphere was electric as Bob announced that the journey toward winning a grand second honeymoon would begin immediately. To start the proceedings, the wives were escorted to a soundproof area, leaving the husbands alone on stage to face the first round of questioning. Bob reminded the gentlemen that each matching answer would earn them 5 points. The stakes were high, and the first question delved straight into the heart of their domestic lives. He asked them, since they had been married, when it came to romance, would their wives say that the husbands owed them more rain checks or that the wives owed the husbands more rain checks? Matt Kramer was the first to speak. With a slight shrug and a smile, he predicted that Kristen would say she owed him more rain checks. He explained to Bob that she always had a lot of things going on and frequently used the classic line, "Well, not tonight, honey." Mike Crump, however, had a completely different story. He confessed that he was the one who owed his wife more rain checks. He worked long hours and often fell asleep the moment he hit the couch, leaving Sherilyn waiting in vain while he drifted off to dreamland. Ron Baldwin agreed with Matt, stating that Paula owed him because she worked many late nights. Calvin Alford rounded out the group by admitting that he was the debtor in his relationship, hoping that Felicia might one day collect on all those missed romantic opportunities. The conversation then shifted to a more whimsical scenario. Bob asked the men to imagine they were the famous magician David Copperfield. What specific item would their wives say they would make disappear from their home, never to be seen again? Mike immediately thought of a certain bookshelf that had been an eyesore in their house for far too long. Ron, surprisingly, mentioned a persistent problem with ants, wishing he could magically banish the tiny intruders forever. Calvin aimed his magic wand at the telephone, complaining that Felicia spent far too much time talking on it. Matt, ever the practical husband, wished he could make Kristen's credit card bills vanish into thin air, noting her profound love for shopping. The final 5-point question for the husbands required them to complete a sentence about their wives' creation. If the creators had asked for the husband's opinion, what would he have told them to hold back on? Ron sparked a bit of laughter by suggesting his wife had a flat butt. Calvin took a riskier route, claiming the creators should not have given Felicia such a big mouth. Matt offered a more specific critique, wishing she had been given more athletic ability, or as he put it, an inability to play sports. Mike concluded by saying Sherilyn had a wide and very strong opinion about almost everything. While the show took a brief intermission to allow for messages about health, sleep aids like Relaxium Sleep, and curated gift boxes from Bespoke Post, the tension backstage began to build. There was even a moment to celebrate the legacy of Richard Dawson, a titan of game show history, before the ladies were brought back to the stage to see if their perceptions aligned with those of their husbands. When the wives returned, Bob greeted them and began the process of revealing the scores. The first question about romantic rain checks was posed to the ladies. Felicia confirmed Calvin's suspicion, stating firmly that he owed her more rain checks because he was always either sleepy or glued to the television remote. Paula agreed with Ron, admitting she was the one owing the checks. Sherilyn likewise confirmed Mike's prediction, jokingly saying she had been chasing him since the wedding while he just wanted to sleep. Kristen also matched with Matt, confessing that his constant romantic advances were more than she could keep up with. The magic trick question proved to be a bit more difficult for some. Paula did not mention the ants that Ron had complained about, focusing instead on the never-ending piles of dirty laundry. Sherilyn thought Mike would want to get rid of her blue hair rack, only to find out he was actually targeting that old bookcase. Kristen, however, was a perfect match for Matt. She knew exactly that he wanted those credit card bills gone, though she cheekily added that she would just get more if he ever cut them up. Felicia and Calvin had a minor disagreement when she mentioned ants while he had predicted the telephone. A playful argument ensued about exactly how much time she spent on the phone, a classic case of he said, she said. The round concluded with the sentence completion question. Sherilyn guessed Mike would mention her love handles, but he had actually gone with her wide opinions. Kristen thought Matt would say something sweet about her beautiful face, only to be playfully offended when he revealed he had mentioned her lack of sports coordination. Felicia and Paula both managed to match with their husbands on the topics of a big mouth and a big opinion, respectively, leading to more laughter and a few mock glares across the stage. As the show moved into the second half, the points increased to 10 per match. Now it was the wives' turn to make predictions while the husbands were sequestered. Bob asked the ladies who fantasized more during their intimate moments, known on the show as whoopee. Most of the women, including Sherilyn, Paula, and Felicia, pointed the finger at their husbands, citing wild imaginations or an interest in certain movies and magazines. Kristen was the lone outlier, claiming she was the one who fantasized more. The next 10-point question asked for a character trait of the husband that none of the wife's girlfriends liked. Paula suggested Ron was sloppy. Felicia claimed Calvin was moody. Kristen noted that Matt was perpetually late for everything. Sherilyn felt that Mike was simply not talkative enough when her friends were around. Finally, the ladies were asked to complete a sentence about being a hotshot. Each wife had to identify something her husband thought he was great at, but which she had actually taught him everything he knew. Felicia chose house decorating. Kristen and Sherilyn both chose driving, with Kristen noting she was the superior driver in the family. Paula chose the technical task of hooking up electronics like the television. Before the final reveal, the couples were shown a glimpse of the prize, a fabulous one-week Caribbean cruise. The excitement was palpable as the husbands returned to the stage. When asked about the fantasies, Ron and Calvin both incorrectly guessed their wives, leading to more humorous debates about TV Guide and who really wanted to stay up all night. Mike and Matt also struggled to find a perfect match in this category. The character trait round saw Matt and Kristen successfully match on the topic of his tardiness. Ron and Paula found common ground on his sloppiness. However, Calvin and Mike missed the mark, with their wives having much more specific complaints than the husbands anticipated. In the final 10-point segment, the driving skills of the husbands became a major point of contention. Matt was surprised to hear Kristen thought she taught him how to drive, especially since she focused on his parking and navigation skills. Calvin was told he was a hotshot at decorating, though he had guessed singing. Ron was corrected on his electronic skills, and Mike was teased about his driving despite his belief in his own cooking abilities. The game came down to the 25-point bonus question: what is the husband's favorite professional sports team? Ron correctly identified the Angels, matching Paula's answer. Mike guessed the Lakers, but Sherilyn had said the Steelers. Calvin and Felicia achieved a perfect match with the Rams. The tension reached its peak with Matt and Kristen. Matt confidently answered the Lakers, and Kristen's card revealed the exact same team. With a final score of 45 points, Matt and Kristen Kramer were declared the grand prize winners. The stage was filled with cheers and applause as Bob Eubanks congratulated the couple on their upcoming second honeymoon. It was a day of laughter, a few small revelations, and a lot of heart, proving that even after months of marriage, there was always something new to learn about the person you love. Bob bid the audience farewell, ending another classic episode of the Newlywed Game.